Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey, Joe on Joe listeners, it's me, Joe Slepsky, and I'm back and you're back. This is the quarantine re-releases of our original tracks going back 4 years, and I hope you're enjoying these as much as I'm enjoying reliving them, warts and all. I think you can easily hear where I'm finding myself and finding what the show turned out to be, so I'm really happy to share these with you guys. Again, we pulled these back from behind the Patreon wall, and I wanted to make them available to everybody during this time to share and give and listen and have fun, especially because G.I. Joe's back on YouTube now. So, yeah, so I appreciate that. And you guys can always follow me at Joe on Joe Pod on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Let me know what you think of some of these early episodes, how terrible they are, or how funny they are, or how awful they are. And we're starting recording back up again, so reach out to me. Let me know, joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know if you want to join me for an episode. I believe we're going to jump into G.I. Joe Extreme very, very soon. So without any further ado, here is the OG track from Joe on Joe 4 years ago. Enjoy.
You are listening to the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Yo, Joe, and welcome back to the second episode of Joe on Joe podcast. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to jump into episode 2 of G.I. Joe, again from the wonderful, wonderful Shout Factory box set. And this is episode 2 of the 5-part premiere, Slaves of the Cobra Master. If you remember in Cobra Strikes, you're introduced to the Cobra's nefarious plan. Well, you're introduced to everybody, basically. Like, this is the first episode, so you got to meet everybody. But Cobra has a nefarious plan called the Mass Device, which is basically a giant matter transporter, which is amazing. Like, okay, we'll get into that. And I think there's a recap on this episode, so I won't go into it too much. But when we left it, our hero, Duke, which obviously they're setting way up as he's the lead of the show, Duke was kidnapped by... Oh, I just thought of something. Okay, we got to get into this episode. I'm just going to hit play. So if you're watching along, we're hitting play on the DVD right now. Slaves of the Cobra Master. Again, going to the fantastic title sequence. First thing you see are Hawk's baby blue eyes. Hawk's like Paul Newman. I want Paul Newman to play Hawk, a young Paul Newman. You got the Vamp. You got all the Cobra. See, I think you were supposed to have a ton of like Cobra soldiers. So you were supposed to buy like, one of each of the characters, the figures. And then you were supposed to buy like 18 Cobra soldiers, and so you round out your army. And I never did that, and I don't know what that. I don't know. It's not an OCD thing, obviously, because I didn't like complete it. But like my comic collection, I have 30,000 comic books. Let me rephrase that. I have 36,000 comic books, and I have less than like 300 duplicates. I do not have a lot of duplicates on my comic books. And so when it came to toys, I was the same way. We're here, okay. We're getting our recap now. So if you're watching along, you're seeing they kidnap the Eiffel Tower. They kidnap Duke. Well, is there no end to their kidnapping? So I never wanted more than one thing. I just wanted one of everything, and it's crazy and creepy. And you got your gold, frankincense, and myrrh there. So Duke is fighting this giant, like Conan-esque monster guy that's, of course, being mind controlled. This just dawned on me. So this show started, the first episode, what's the first thing we saw last time? We saw Duke and Scarlet being cozy, right? So it's a young kid saying, hey, here's a relationship. Here's a, young couple there, and they might be in love. I don't know. They're definitely interested in each other. It's a workplace romance. Cut to Duke's away. One, he's on a mission, first of all, Duke. All right? He's away for like 5 minutes, and he's making googly eyes with the Savage Lady here. Definitely, obviously, they're setting him up as a raconteur. But, what about Scarlet? It's kind of a cad move. I don't maybe I'm applying today's morals on it. And real quick, if you look at their joysticks, they're totally Atari joysticks. They even have the freaking button on them. They have the Atari thumb button. Like the characters that the humans that they're controlling are going to then shoot something out of their eyes or something. Like, what does that button do? Like, what could it possibly do? Maybe it's the on-off switch. Maybe he hit it. Maybe that's what it did. It's the on-off switch, but it's definitely can't be a trigger button. What's going to happen? I love that Destro pulls the move of I'm just going to let my character. I don't know if he called him Duke by name. I'm going to let Duke fight his own battle. It's awesome because it shows like respect. Like, yeah, this guy's pretty good. He can handle your giant Conan looking monster guy. And it's also, kicking the mask to Cobra Commander too. It's pretty great. Cobra has a gigantic size mass device. And this guy's got like a little midget mass device, which is great.
The first element we need
like a
is
desktop size mass
crystal which
device.
can be found buried near
Just
the
ready to go.
circle.
So now we're getting into that. This is the kind of adventure that comic books excelled in, and the comic books did, team books did forever, starting with the Justice Society, back in the 40s, where you would have a team of heroes, and really, I touched on this a little bit last episode. For me, one of the main drawing points and appeal of G.I. Joe is that every character's individual, right? So they all have their own unique look, unique personality, unique specialization, right? They're a team of superheroes. It's totally what they are. It's no revelation or secret, but that's what they are. Everyone's a superhero with their own superpower. One of their superpowers happens to be, I'm a sailor with a parrot on my shoulder, or I'm a ninja, or I'm a lady ninja with an awesome crossbow, or I'm a firefighter, or I stuff up blowtorch, or I'm a mine diffusion expert. Like everyone has their specialty, just like a team like the Avengers or the X-Men or the Justice League. There's or the Legion of superheroes. The Legion even had a rule that you couldn't duplicate someone's powers, and that's pretty much what G.I. Joe was. So what was great about it is there weren't any duplications. A couple years later, they started to do that, kind of freshen people up. Like when they brought in Roadblock, he was a heavy machine gunner, and they already had rock and roll, which Roadblock's totally an upgrade to rock and roll. No offense, rock and roll, you're pretty awesome, but Roadblock's so great that he just trumps everything. But that's what's so fantastic about G.I. Joe, and I think what captures the hearts and minds of kids is, even if they don't love comic books, it's just that diversity and that listen, that's a huge thing everyone's talking about these days. With and she just slipped him a piece of, by the way, like gold foil. It looks like chewing gum. He's going to use that to escape. I love it. The principle of seeing yourself in someone is so appealing to kids and so appealing to fans who want to have their adventure, right? So seeing yourself represented on screen, right? That's what everyone's talking about these days, and whether it's race or gender or style or whatever, you got to hit it all. Well, that's what's great about G.I. Joe, is that they hit it all. This is 1983. There is something for everybody here, If you watch a cartoon that I also loved, but a cartoon like He-Man, great cartoon, but the diversity there was in the crazy bad guys, and you're not a Snake Man, or you're not a Beast Man, or you're not a Moss Man, or you're not a Falcon Man, but here, G.I. Joe, you might be, there's Major Blood, you might be Australian, or Barbecue was from Boston. You might be a kid from Boston. You might love Barbecue because he was from Boston and he talked with your accent. Or, you might be a young black kid and you love Stalker, You might be a young blonde ninja whose parents got killed and you're mute and you had your facial deformed. And you're sitting at home, you're like, there's no one on TV that represents me. And all of a sudden Snake Eyes comes along and you're like, oh my God, he's just like me. So that's what's great. That's honestly, truly what I think is such a winning formula for this show. And I think that's something that the people who make the movies completely forgot about. Not completely, I guess. You get into, they cast The Rock and all that stuff, but what they missed when they did the movies, and I enjoy them. I'll probably do one of these episodes for those when we get to them.
will return after these messages.
I enjoy the movies, but they all look the same. There's a visual element too. There's a visual element of differentiating your heroes that was completely lost when they translated it to the big screen. And it's such an easy. It would have been such an easy thing to do. Instead, they gave us everyone was dressed like Snake Eyes, and it's just like you whoever the production design on that was, whoever the costumer, whoever made those choices, I don't know who. You just missed the point. Like, you missed the whole point of the show, of the appeal of the show. You got to make everyone look different, and it's not just because you have a actor of this ethnicity or this race or this gender. It's the character themselves. Specifically, there was that moment when they they go through the pit, and this is in the first movie, and you see all the rest of the G.I. Joe team training, and it's awesome. You're like, oh, okay, they're part of a bigger thing. Man, every single one of those characters in the background should have been in a different outfit. And I'm talking, they could have been in different T-shirts. They could have been, had someone dressed in a football shirt like Bazooka, someone in a green camo like Stalker, or just everyone should have been dressed up as just get a bunch of cosplayers. You could have done it as cosplayers, and it would have been amazing. And fans would have lost their minds. It would have been so great, but they didn't do that, and I think there's a huge missed opportunity. Anyway, back to it. Cobra Commander, he just kidnapped half the Russian army. And if you're looking at the timeline, this is before Rocky IV. This is before Sylvester Stallone, ended the Cold War with a couple punches. If I can change, if you can change. So Cobra Commander's not doing a lot of good to help U.S.-Russian relations right here.
The mass device is not a toy for your amusement. These repeated demonstrations of its power
Destro,
have almost exhausted our supply of catalytic elements.
I have absolutely, one is a little lip indentation because he got a metal face. Always gives him a Hitler stash. I had absolutely no idea that he's supposed to be Scottish. Okay, so first episode we talked about how I had no idea that he was wearing an open shirt, and that was supposed to be his bare chest. So I just assumed Destro was a black dude. And then I had no idea that he was supposed to be Scottish. Because he ain't Scottish. So I think Destro's a good guy to focus on for today's episode. I'm going to flip through my file card, see if I got Destro's file card. If not, I'll look him up. So you got Snow Job, which is one of the best names for a toy for children. Snow Job. So you got Snow Job and Scarlet, and is that? I think that's Tripwire, and I think that's Flash. And it's with the green shirts, it's a little hard to tell. Again, guys, I'm not an expert. I just love it. Earlier, one of the things I was saying that they're doing right now with this episode that I think they just got straight from comics, which was fantastic, is they have a mission, and they have to split up and go on the mission. I think they do it a little more like at the same time in the second miniseries. So right now we're just following this mission, but that's what they did in Justice Society all the time, and they did in Justice League all the time, and for years they did in the Justice League. So you'd have a big problem, and all the heroes would be gathered. All the heroes would be gathered in the Justice League satellite, and they'd be like, okay, well, yeah, we could send Superman to do everything and kind of mop everything up, but instead we're just going to take you three, Batman, you and the Flash, go stop this guy, and Wonder Woman, you and Martian Manhunter, go stop this guy. And they're doing the same thing here, which is really smart, and it allows you to tell like these big scale stories with these small personal moments, and that's what they're doing. So they've outlined this really easy plot for kids to follow. We've got these 3 elements. We need to get them. We need to go to these 3 locations to get them. And these are the teams that are going to do it. And it's simple. It breaks it down. It's kind of like so they're not. What am I trying to say? Like, they're not throwing everything at you at once, which is fantastic. Not everyone is interested in like teams like the Legion of Superheroes, which I happen to be a huge fan of. There's a lot of, sometimes you need to just focus on, I think good storytelling is you just focus on, a few characters and show that they're a part of a larger, part of that larger unit. And that's the appeal. So here we go. Destro. So we all know Destro by now. He's got the metal mask. He's a Scottish arms dealer. But what do we really know about him, right? What do we really know? Well, as of the G.I. Joe Order of Battle, published in 1987, according to his file card, we know nothing. It's a birthplace unknown, even though it was established that he was part of like a Scottish clan Destro. It's so funny. So it says Destro is the faceless power behind Mars, the military armament research system, largest manufacturer of state-of-the-art weaponry. To Destro, war is man's most natural state. The fittest survive, and the greatest technological advances are made. That's actually true. Okay, so that's actually true. Let's take here a second. Unfortunately, technology advances when we're at war, which is kind of a crappy thing to do, to think about, but it's true. The most advances are when all the money's funneled into the war machine and they come up with, with various advancements, which then eventually filter into the private sector. And so then we have, wonderful cars with great gear shifts. And I don't know anything. Listen, I don't know anything about cars. But all this stuff that was developed in World War II eventually made it into the car industry, right? Because they needed it for battle. Now, here we go, real quick. Back to the show. Here we go, Duke getting cozy with this cute young co-ed, giving her something. Duke knows there's a tracker in that ring. But you know what else that is? That's a leave behind. Duke's giving her a leave behind. He's going to come back and get it and say, "What's up, ladies?" So Destro maintains a luxurious lifestyle around the world. Destro provides high-tech arms to any side able to meet his price and will incite war where it does not exist. He dons his silver battle mask, it's a family tradition, and enters battle himself, either with Cobra Command, Destro is their major weapons supplier, or against them if it's better for business, which is fascinating. When I was a kid, that was fascinating. I'm like, wait a minute, is he a bad guy or isn't he? Like, whose side is he on? Is he running his own shadow operation? And that's what was great. Larry Hama did a ton of that stuff, where Destro would show up at the pit and be like, "What's up? I want to help you against Cobra Commander because he's nuts." And so fascinating to have a character, have your probably your second, if not your main bad guy, because obviously Cobra Commander is supposed to be the main bad guy, but the guy that's pretty much there every step of the way, he's kind of a shades of gray guy. Yeah, he's an a-hole. But to think that he would occasionally go against Cobra Commander, that's awesome. Destro respects the G.I. Joe team for their combat skills and experience, but he abhors them for wasting such skills to maintain peace. He's totally dedicated to seeing them undermined, subverted, or destroyed with an exclamation mark. So I take that back. He's kind of a jerk. So as of that writing, apparently, at least as far as they wanted their readers to know, they didn't want readers to know that Destro was part of Clan McCullough. With that thick Scottish brogue, but it doesn't sound like Scottish brogue to me. It just sounds like a African-American dude. All right. This might have been my first exposure to radiation when I was a kid. The concept of it. We got Snow Job telling us about radiation, glowing in the dark. Snake Eyes is about to help him out. His radiation apparently is purple, which is great. Oh, I can't get into that, but oh man, this is straight up. This is straight up Wrath of Khan stuff. Wait a minute. That's right. I would have seen Wrath of Khan. Star Trek 2 was before this.
Look
Oh,
at
this
that.
is awesome. Okay, so they totally
Way
took this
out.
from Star Trek 2, The
Must
Wrath
have
of Khan,
opened
and I would have
automatically
seen
when
that. So
Snake
yeah.
Eyes lowered the shield.
So you're watching this and you're like, oh my God, it's just like when Spock sacrificed himself. Oh, yeah. So real quick, I'm going to jump back to, there's Snake Eyes. It's in the comic, for those uninitiated, in the comic, Snake Eyes and Scarlet were an item. In the cartoon, Scarlet was an item with Duke, which I always thought was a betrayal because Snake Eyes is the real man. But you can't have one of your leads on your cartoon be a mute, faceless ninja. It's just never gonna work. They can barely make it work in comics. Snake Eyes has had multiple series of his own that it was just the one series they recently did. It just literally turned into Storm Shadow, and like at issue 8 or 9 or something, they just started calling it Storm Shadow, and it was the Storm Shadow comic book, which bothered me. I always thought you could totally do a Snake Eyes comic, but I don't know. Well, yeah, listen, G.I. Joe has enough trouble keeping a regular series going, so maybe I'm wrong. So now we fast forward to the Devil's Due Battle Files update on Destro, and sure enough, this is from 2002. Sure enough, they give his name, James McCullen, the 24th. James McCullen, the 24th. Jesus. His lineage stretches back to the 1600s, where his family were reputable weapons suppliers in Europe. One of his descendants was punished for his transgressions and forced to wear a steel mask over his face. So they're stealing the Man in the Iron Mask, the Dumas, the Three Musketeers stuff. Choosing to wear the mask with pride rather than humiliation became tradition throughout the family. Each head of the clan donning the mask. They later established what would one day become MARS, the Military Armament Research Syndicate. And that eventually becomes Destro. Fantastic. So he's Scottish, right? Never got that from the cartoon. Although I think they do, at one point, they do go to his Scottish Highland castle, and it still didn't drain into my head. I'm pretty sure they're fairly positive they go to his castle and it's haunted with ghosts or something. We'll get to that episode.
He doesn't look
But
good,
I
Dad.
had no idea.
Is he going to make it?
His vital signs are weak, Covergirl. But Duke's no ordinary man. Full emergency team ready.
There's a great illustration of Destro by Joe Benitez. Looks good. Duke, hurt in battle. Foreshadowing the G.I. Joe movie. Duke's always getting in trouble. Years later, Destro would get his own Iron Grenadiers and and his own kind of his own shadow military, really, which is funny because it's hinted at on that first card, and they eventually did do it. And I remember from the toy collecting, I was confused at that. I was like, well, wait a minute. Is Destro his own set of Cobras? I don't know. So Cobra Commander now has kidnapped all the world leaders and outfitted all of them with those funky headbands. And he and Destro are dropping ultimatums all over the world. Snake Eyes was sealed into the radiation, presuming to die, just like Spock in Wrath of Khan. Except Scarlet should have been like, Destro! I guess she would have said that in a more feminine voice.
It's no use.
What can I say?
I can't remember anything.
So Duke has amnesia.
Nothing except a face.
A girl.
A beautiful face.
You gotta remember, man.
Beautiful
Somehow,
girl.
some way, you must.
See, Duke remembers a beautiful girl, which has got to be a slap in the face to Scarlet. Just saying. Cut to Destro maniacally laughing. Love it. And we go to commercial break.
G.I.
Man.
Joe will return after these messages. In our next episode, Cobra robots blast.
And now, again, we're getting a little tease of what's going to happen next step. And you look, ooh, there's the radioactive Snake Eyes. Kind of a spoiler. Because as far as I'm watching this, as far as I'm concerned, Snake Eyes just died. That's kind of a spoiler. I don't know how I feel about that.
Oh, the Worms of Death.
That's Worms of Death sounds like something my dog just had. We had to give him pills for. So there it is, episode 2, Joe and Joe podcast. Once again, we got the great end credits. Thank you all for listening.
Remember to, follow us Facebook and Instagram and social media and Twitter us up and let me know what you want to see on the show or who you want to see. Oh, and if you're out there listening and you want to join me, if you're on the LA area and join me for an episode, I'd love to talk to you, Joe. One of the reasons I do this solo is I don't have any friends that give a crap about G.I. Joe. So if you're out here, you're listening and you want to join me, absolutely. Even if you don't know anything about G.I. Joe, just join us. We'll talk Joe. It'll be great. All right, so until next time, yo, Joe.